Hello, and welcome to this session today. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you had a chance to go through some of the other deep dive sessions. This is going to be a little change of pace, no pun intended, compared to what we have on the slide today. But we're going to be looking at the AWS and Amazon's process of innovation, what that really entails. A quick look at that, and then look at the team that I work for, Envision Engineering, and how that team is bringing that process to customers like you, and how that process works in collaboration with our customers, and how they're getting benefit from it. My name is Atahak. I'm a senior product manager in Envision Engineering team. And later on the stage, I'll be joined by Dr. Nitin Naik. He is Chief Technology Officer at US Census Bureau. And he will be talking about his experience, the challenges that he's dealing with on the US Census side, and the work that AWS has done to help out with that. So let's get started with that. You may have seen this slide before. It comes up quite often, talks about the AWS Pace of Innovation, looking at 2011, 82 services and features launched in that year. 82 number itself is pretty significant. If you look at it, 82 new services and features in 1 year. But just comparing it to last year, more than 1,400 services and features launched. And all of that innovation coming in based on the feedback that we get from customers like you. 90 to 95% of that innovation is based on that. And when we talk to our customers, they really love that innovation that AWS is bringing in, because it helps them move forward. But at the same time, customers also want to know more about those services, how to use them, and how the Envision Engineering team is helping. We'll talk about that. But the culture and the process that goes behind that innovation is something that customers are also interested in, because they want to build something like that within their own organizations. As AWS is moving fast, they want to move fast with AWS. They want to make sure that they're at the cutting edge of technology. They're bringing benefits to their customers and end users. So how does, okay, it's working. So how does this process looks like in AWS and in Amazon? So you may have heard the term working backwards process, and that really comes from the mission that Amazon has to be the most customer-centric company in the world. So everything that we do at Amazon and AWS starts from the customer. The customer always stays in focus, and then we work backwards from them, and that's where the term working backwards comes from. So you decide, you describe what the customer needs are, and then you work backwards from it. So when we work internally, we use this process called working backwards process. It really has 3 parts to it. The first one is press release, the second is FAQs, and the third is visuals. So we'll go through that, talk about that a bit, what that means. Press release, well, the term itself says what it really is. It's a press release. But it's an internal press release. It's a mock press release. And the reason for building a press release is that you're putting customer focus up front. You're talking about what the customer problem is, what benefit are we bringing to the customer, and how that solves the customer problem. When you write a press release, it generally involves a statement which says, here's the problem that we saw the customers were having, and here's the solution that we're bringing to our customers. And generally, it also contains a quote from the customer, a mock quote, because when you're doing it internally, it's a mock quote for a customer that you're representing. And that quote represents how the customer is going to have that experience with your product, have that experience with the solution that you're bringing. That really brings out that customer focus in that press release. If you look at any of the examples for any of the AWS services and features launch and press releases for those, you will find that same pattern in there. Because when we write that press release internally, we use the same process and a version of that to publish those press releases externally as well, because that's where we started as a focus. So you need to identify who your customer is, what is the customer problem or challenge that you're trying to address, and what is the customer benefit that the customers will get out of, and why is that problem exists? Why do you think that is a problem? So it has to have some data, some information about it. And at Amazon, we really like to have data available before we make any decisions. So when we write these press releases, we want to make sure that we're addressing something that really is a problem and not just a perceived issue. Once you have that, there's a FAQ, which is, again, a very common term. A lot of people are familiar with it. Frequently asked questions. You talk about that product and solution internally, how the technical aspects of it would work, not in depth, just at a high level so that people can understand within your organization. And also from a customer perspective, that if the customer was using that tool, that product, how would they interact with that solution? What kind of questions would they be asking? What kind of information they would be looking for? So you're adding some fidelity to your ideas, to your solution that you want to build. And the maturity of that solution also drives the fidelity of information that you want to put in there. If it's at a high level, then the information that you're presenting in press release and in FAQs is at a high level as well. And that also translates into visuals when you talk about that. So visual is really the user experience that user is going to have. It could be rough sketches, wireframes, mobile application designs, or some back-end interactions, whatever the solution that you're building towards. It defines that. But talking about web applications, mobile applications for this kind of process gives an impression that this process might be catered towards some specific applications and some specific domains. But that process has been used across all different kind of innovation that has been brought in by Amazon over many years. Looking at drone development or in-house entertainment, or this new initiative that you may have heard about, Amazon Go, an amazing customer-focused solution where you just go into a shop, you pick up items from shelves, and you just walk out. There are no lines, checkout lines that you have to deal with. Or the home automation that you have seen with Alexa, Amazon Echo, that's going around and building custom implementation from all different customers that we have seen, using it in many, many different ways. So all of these are driven by the same process. In 2011, Jeff Bezos made that statement in a letter to shareholders and said, "Invention is in our DNA. And technology is the fundamental tool we wield to evolve and improve every aspect of the experiences we provide our customers." What does it really mean in terms of an organization? You can break it down into 4 different areas within Amazon, the way we look at that. The first thing is mechanism. You have to have a mechanism for bringing that ideas to reality. And that's the working backwards process that I just talked about. So that's the mechanism that we use, and it is behind every innovation and invention that we do. Beyond that, you have to look at the architectural aspects of your solution as well. Like what kind of solution you want to build. You always want to build something that is flexible, scalable, easily manageable, and extensible in future. So we look at loosely coupled applications, self-service platforms for our customers, because we want to make it easy for them. But the most important thing that you'll find in all this is the culture. People within an organization are the most important thing. If you want to bring innovation in your organization, if you want to bring that process within your organization where you have the possibility of innovating fast, you really have to start with the culture and the people. And the way we do it in Amazon is we have these 14 leadership principles that we go by with. The first one being customer obsession. And then there are think big, invent and simplify, earn trust, where we believe we have to earn trust of our customers every day, every week, every year. And we continue along with those leadership principles every day. So it is part of our daily working process. And that's how it brings that invention and innovation in the DNA of the organization. On top of it, one of the leadership principles we have is hire the best. So when we go out and we look for resources who are excited to work on new solutions that can bring innovation, that can bring new solutions, that can help the customers. all of that invention and innovation is not useful if it's not solving a meaningful problem. So we have that combination of having builders and having inventors combined with the 14 leadership principles where we focus on customer obsession that cultivates that culture within the organization where everybody is striving to do the best for the customer. And once you have all that, you want to organize your organization in a way that it moves forward. So we have the two-pizza team model, a two-pizza team where your team is big enough that you can feed them with 2 pizzas. And within that organization, with these kind of small teams, you can have experimentation. You can have small tasks to build. You can fail within those tasks and learn from those and iterate on it. And we'll talk about those shifts in culture, shifts in cultures coming that we see in the market today. So, okay, it's not switching. Okay. So all of that sounds interesting, and it brings a lot of focus on how the Amazon processes and culture works today. But what if our customers need a little more than that? We do provide blogs today that customers can follow on the new services and technologies. We provide white papers on the information that is available to our customers. But sometimes they need a little bit more help with moving forward. And that's where the Envision Engineering team comes in. So it's a new team started in 2017 with the focus that we want to go to the customers, bring that culture of innovation, bring that mechanism of working backwards and customer focus to our customers, work with them, and build towards their challenges that they have. And we build a rapid proof of concept working with them. We have worked with many different organizations and customers. We have built solutions which include machine learning for security threat models. We have built solutions where we're doing recognition to find missing children across the world. We have IoT implementations where we're finding patterns for water usage and consumption to improve those in developing countries. And a lot of requests coming in for data lake solutions where you want to centralize data. You want to save costs with that. You want to have single source of truth, but you also want to have control on that data. You also want to have access on that data only to certain authorized people, and you want to run analytics on it and other jobs on it. So those kind of different solutions that our team has built and continue to build, working with different customers and organizations. But what is the process that the team uses? It is the same process that we just talked about that we have within Amazon, where we start with this press release model, and then we work towards a proof of concept scope, and then we build that. So just quickly walking through that, the first thing that we do with our customers is a 6-hour workshop. It's an Envision workshop. The purpose of that workshop is to listen to our customers like you, to understand what is the problem that they're trying to solve. What is the business objective? What is the challenge associated with it? What is the benefit that we're trying to bring to the customers through that? And once we have heard that information in the workshop, we work with you to build a press release, to bring that customer focus back in, to focus on what is really needed, help you focus on that and build that proof of concept where you can delight your customers. Within that workshop, we also work towards building a user experience, defining the boundaries for that proof of concept that we're going to build. What are the top issues that you want to focus on? So it is a process of working backwards, but compacted in a very short time frame. Because the whole objective of this Envision Engineering workshop is to bring that process to you, work in a rapid iterations, and help you learn that process while we build that rapid proof of concept for you. The scope document that comes out of that Envision workshop helps our team to focus on the deliveries that we want to do for our customers, building the proof of concept, and also define the success criteria. Like at the end of the day, when we are done with that implementation, we want to know if we were successful or not. Did we really achieve what we set out to do? And that's where the success criteria within a scope document really come in. Once we have the scope document with mutual agreement with our customers, understanding what we're going to build, we start off into the 4 to 6 weeks sprint process. That's really where the exciting stuff starts to happen. We're building towards that proof of concept on a weekly basis. On a weekly basis, we're meeting with customers, showing them the progress that they have made, getting their feedback, understanding where we need to do course correction, raising issues where we think there can be something better that can be done, something that you may have not thought about, because one of the objectives that we have in the process is to think big. The reason that we want to focus on the customer side and not on the technical side is that there may be a better solution that exists out there that we haven't thought about. So we really focus on that, and we bring that to our customers on a weekly basis within that interaction. At the end of that 4 to 6 weeks, we have a working proof of concept, which is a tangible application that you can work with, play with, use it, show it within your organization. We provide the source code and documentation for that. That has been built throughout the process. And we work with the customers to take that to the next step, which is production. It could be in multiple ways, whether you work within your own team, within your organization, or you want to get some support from AWS Professional Services or ProServe, or you want to work with some AWS partner to take that proof of concept and take it to the next level and actually build it into production and use it. So within that whole experience, there are a lot of steps that I just talked about, but it'll be better to hear it from one of our customers that we worked with, and they had that experience, they had challenges, and they came in and talked to us about that. So I would like to invite Dr. Nitin Naik to stage, talk about the work that we did for US Census.
Thanks, Arta. Good morning. So what Arta presented is what AWS does, and it's very surprising, and actually not so surprising. Census has always been on the path of innovation. We have done a lot of things. We tend to show it during our decennial census collection process, but there is a constant thread of innovation, and actually, as CTO, I run something called the Center for Applied Technology, where we are constantly working with the business and trying to prove how can we improve business processes, or how can we apply new technology to a business problem. So about, I would say, 8 months ago, this was just before Thanksgiving last year, I made a proposal to the business that we want to look at something called an enterprise data lake. And I know data lake is the buzz term going around, but the basic notion is how can we build a logical data warehouse in the cloud environment, and what will be required to do that. And so I reached out to AWS and I said, hey, can you help me show what is the art of the possible? And as Arta said, we always need to know what are the business challenges. And I think any organization working today, if you're handling data, these are common problems, and we have those same problems. It's not that what we are doing is bad, it's just that what we have been doing has evolved over time because of technology limitations, because of business processes, because of the capabilities, because of the skills that are available in the organization. And so we have landed in this situation where we have security and privacy, but it is decentralized. What that means is that we are applying security and privacy to individual systems, individual data sets, and that is a huge load. We are doing it very well. So far, there have been no leakages. But the issue is, how can we continue to maintain efficiency? How can we keep the costs down to deliver this capability? The next part is data management. So the census does anywhere between 105 to 110 surveys. And so we collect a lot of data. We collect data about the population, we collect data about the economy, we collect data about businesses, we collect data about addresses, and by the way, the data has all different formats. We even collect geographic data. So we have latitude, longitude, maps, all of that, and the question is, how do we manage all that data? The next part is the data storage. So this leads to some of the problems we have in the sense that it is decentralized. We tend to store our data separately, but it is not in a common place. Each business entity is collecting their data, each project is collecting their data, and they are managing their data very well. The question is, can we link some of the data as per the guidelines, all security policies, so that we can get better access and we get better products? Because census is in the business of providing data products to the federal government, state government, and private sector. Decisions are made based on census data, and we want to be able to give better quality data so that good decisions are being made. One of the other problems is processing and analytic logic constraints. So I don't know how many of you folks, you are in the data centers, you all are spinning up environments for individual projects. You're spinning up or installing servers which are very dedicated to a single project for a single processing capability. That causes huge problems. In our case, we are a federal agency. We are covered by certain laws. So Title 13 is what protects all of your private data in our environment. That is written in the law. We have to adhere to it. Title 26, that is where we are taking tax data from the IRS and from the states, and we are using that as part of the analysis to understand, okay, what is the situation in terms of the population? Well, that is covered by another law called Title 26. It is all written in the law. And by the way, we cannot go against these laws because there are criminal penalties for the employees in the organization if they don't follow these laws. So the whole processing and analytic has huge constraints because everything is siloed. And then finally, the reproducibility. So we are a scientific research organization. Our results are questioned by the scientific community, by the social sciences community. So we have to be able to prove that we can reproduce the results or reproduce how we got the data sets to the point where they are. So that means we have to store the raw data, we have to store the logic, and we have to store the data as it goes through the different stages of processing. Those are some of the technology constraints, and that leads to this reproducibility problem. So in our CAT lab, we were thinking about this, and this is where we reached out to the AWS Envision Engineering team because we were making a proposal. I was making a proposal to the business and to management that we would like to take advantage of the cloud. With my CIO, we went and presented this concept. And both the CIO and I felt that we needed to show, because it was great on paper, but we actually needed to show how this would be done. So we took the problem. We said we need to share secure access to petabytes of statistical data. We wanted to have a notion of an app store where we would basically have the choice of choosing data sets, because we are putting all the data sets in one place, and then also the logic, which is in scripts. So we would have the ability to share not only the data, but also the logic so people don't have to recreate the logic if they are using it to perfect the data. We wanted to integrate analytics with Hadoop. So I know many of you may be aware of EMR and those sort of things, but what we wanted to do was we wanted to use open source platforms and then integrate analytics on top of the platform so that we can keep our security boundary clear. The next one was the whole column level security. So we wanted to achieve cell level security, which CIA, NSA, that's what they do. But we said, okay, for the proof of concept, let's at least do column level security. And the last one was the key part. So when we are, I think most IT people who are driving change, and I as the CTO, I'm always driving change, but the big question always comes, what do I do with what I have today? Okay, are you going to make me throw that all in the trash and start all over again? Do I have to build it all over again? Do I have to create the code all over again? And that was one of the biggest challenges which I gave AWS and my team was, can we use the legacy SaaS analytics scripts and apply it into the new environment? So as Arta said, the process, we worked backwards. AWS Envision Engineering team came in. We led a workshop jointly, their group, my group, and we worked with the business. We asked them all the business challenges. We went through the same process that they had. We had a very similar process in-house, but we adopted their process, which is, okay, what would you like your press release to be like? What are the frequently asked questions? Okay, what is the notes, FAQs? And this is to the business. And by the way, IT was also there because IT is also part of the business. And we went through this process. We came up with a set of requirements. We said, okay, because this was all supposed to be done in basically 6 weeks. So there was another sort of mantra or paradigm we work on is, if you want to do something, do it fast and fail fast, because then decisions can be made of where you want to go. So we defined success. We mutually agreed on a set of requirements that we were going to build. We created the proof of concept, and then we started delivering results. So the results were basically creation of the environment. These were weekly sprints, which we were then demoing to the business to understand exactly what was happening. So this was a joint partnership. And by the way, this was not just AWS. We also had SaaS in the mix, and we also had other partners in the mix. So this is what is shown on the next slide. We came up with some of the key capabilities, what's in the box. So the notion is you have to have column level controls and going towards cell level. So one of the big components which we wanted to make sure we were using was Akimlo. We were wanting to make sure that we had a central storage. So we agreed on the Amazon S3 bucket and said, okay, all our data goes in that S3 bucket. But when data is being touched, when data is being produced, we want to make sure that we have lineage. We want to know whether it is raw data, whether it's processed data, and if it's processed data, where did the data come from? Okay, which was the previous version? What were the changes? The next one was the LDAP. This is the whole user-based access. How do we make sure that the right people are going to get access to the data? The other component was the platform. We did want to have open source capability, and so we used predominantly the Apache Hadoop Akimlo platform. We accepted Amazon's EMR platform because it's based on the same technology, but it is slightly optimized for their environment. We said, okay, we'll take both of those because we wanted to, again, show to the business that we can go from either platform. We are not locking them down to one platform. And this was one of the key requirements also from the CIO, who said, please make sure that we can sustain this operating model. The next one was SaaS. Now, SaaS is going through their changes. They do have a cloud version of SaaS, but we use the traditional SaaS version 9.4, and we showed that we could take the existing code and just move it over. The last two are the most important things. One of the things, I don't know, again, I keep saying this, if you're in the IT business, the principal complaint from the business side is it takes too long to provide the environment. Well, what we wanted to show with this, with the cloud capability, is that environment will be produced on demand. Once the environment is certified, security certified, the business can come and spin up environments as needed, with the caveat, which is the last capability, of cost tracking, that they would know at any time how much they have spent. So we went through all this. We selected the data sets. We selected the scripts. We ran it. We selected, I don't know if, yeah. So we selected two data sets. The two data sets were actually pretty big data sets. We had, one of the data sets had almost 11 billion rows. So those were big data sets. We loaded it into the environment. We loaded it into the S3 bucket. We took the SaaS scripts. We applied that, and we actually did minor tweaking of that SaaS script to make sure that it would run in the environment. So normally, the SaaS script is hard-coded to operate and point to a very specific directory. We generalized that pointing so that it could work in the cloud. We selected the analytics platform. By the way, when I say we, it's a combination of Census and the Envision Engineering team. And this was the big part, where the Envision Engineering team helped us basically create like an app store, where the business entity could choose whether they wanted EMR or the Hortonworks platform, specifically Akimlo. The business entity would submit the job, it would execute, and once it executed, the results would be stored, and once the results were stored, all the environment was decommissioned and put down. So we were not using any more compute, we were not using any more resources for the Hortonworks or EMR clusters, so everything was back down, and they could see the costs right at that time. So this is just a quick snapshot of what the dashboard looks like. If you look at the top, this was the data set we were looking at. This is the SIP 2008 data panel. The top, these were the users who were allowed. One of the user was the actual owner of the data set, and they could track who can use the data set. And what you see below, where it says column level restriction, is for that data set, each column. And there is a lock icon. So if they were to click, if the data owner clicks on that icon, we would actually be able to assign which of the above users could see or not see a particular column. And then you see on the right, it's the cost tracking of how much it's costing to store that data there. They can see it right up front. And this would be in the S3 bucket initially. And then the next on the top is where they would have on-demand analytics job, where they would click that to get to the job to conduct whatever analysis or process they would like to run on it. So basically, in 9 weeks, we started off with 6 weeks. We went on to 9 weeks because guess what? We have Thanksgiving, we have Christmas, everything comes along the way. But I think we really were able to show, as part of this process, what is possible. It is very difficult for both the business side and the IT side to understand how do they adopt these cloud technologies, how do you operate in the cloud technologies. We provided them the tangible results. One of the key comments here was the fact that, hey, we built an environment, we put the data in it, we put the code in it, and we ran it. There was minimum amount of re-engineering. There was a lot of work in terms of making sure the platforms were integrated together. We reduced the risk, ability to test out the critical paths in the vision. We removed any uncertainty or risk that the business or the IT side had because my security folks, the CISO, was watching what was happening to make sure that they understood what would be the future. So this was something which was great for across the board. It was not just the IT side or the business side. It was all the stakeholders, whether it is on the business, whether it's our privacy office, whether it is our security office, whether it is our IT data center management organization. They all understood what was the vision we were trying to reach out. And this has now allowed the census, as part of its next strategic plan, the next 5-year plan, to define the direction we are going in. So I'll hand it off to Arta to close out here.
Thank you, Dr. Naik. So the process that we went through with Census was not just a learning experience on their side. It was a lot of learning experience on our side as well. We learned the challenges that they have. We learned the vision that Dr. Naik brought in to Census and what he wanted to envision and show it to the business on their side. And from learning from that experience, we're able to apply similar patterns in the future implementations as well and share it with the other customers as well. That's how we build. So within AWS, right from the innovation that I talked about, whenever a feature is requested by a customer, that feature, when it gets released to everybody. It is not specific for that customer. And that's how customers use it and like to use it. So the solution that Dr. Naik was talking about, we built it in 9 weeks. We had a lot of interesting implementations in it. If you missed a deep dive session on that implementation that was earlier today, you can also look up the talks and session for that on YouTube. It'll be available at some point. But it's really interesting, the use of Accumulo to implement a column-level security model and providing that information, passing through column-level security for every user who's requesting analytics on a data that is collected through a wizard-based approach, and then applying that on the fly, making sure that you do not get the columns that you do not have access to. Tracking the cost of running on-demand cluster with SaaS applications, EMR applications, Hortonworks Hadoop applications, tracks all of that and tells you that the analytics that you just ran costed you this much money. And then there's ability that you can also define in future for production versions that certain users can only spin up these kind of machines and not hire just to control the cost. So there are a lot of possibilities with that solution and a lot of new things that we implemented in there in terms of a data lake solution that people look today. But where to start? So the talk was about the innovation process, and what we really wanted to convey is that there's this process behind everything that we do here at Amazon. And if you're looking for that kind of innovation pace within your organizations, you can take those design models, you can take those guidelines, you can take those processes within your own organizations, and you can apply the same way and achieve similar results in terms of having a transformational impact on your business, running fast and building technology-based products that are cutting edge. But where do we start? I left a clue for that in my earlier session here. We start with people. So in every organization, when we go, as AWS, we go and talk to our customers. We talk not only to the developers, not only to the product owners, not only to operations, we also talk to finance and procurement. We also talk to senior leadership because they need to understand. Previously, if your models were that you were tied into long-term contracts. You have capital expenses because you want to buy hardware before you can start on anything. All of that is going away. Now you only have operational costs. You are paying only for what you use. And then finance and procurement departments need to understand that. For the legal and compliance, AWS has a lot of global accreditations and compliances available. In US, we have HIPAA compliance, PCI compliance, ISO certifications. That really takes away the burden from the organizations to go and certify their own environments and makes it available for the customers that we have. So that conversation of change in culture and the way you do things is really going to impact every aspect of your organization. So you really need to start having that conversation with all the different departments in your organizations. And we're already seeing that shift and the cultural shift that's coming in, and a lot of organizations, both in public sector and commercial, are taking that approach to innovate and transform their businesses. Some of the culture shifts that we see are all really based on this one fundamental thing that used to be in the organizations, in the industry in general, where organizations used to say failure is not an option. If we want to build something, it has to be built in a way that there could never be a failure in that situation. And because of that assumption, because of that mindset, you would spend a lot of time making sure that you have handled everything in that solution. Now that approach is changing. The fail fast approach, that if we build something small and something fast and we fail, that we learn from it and then we fix it. And that is the experimentation and learning process that's coming in that is changing the mindset within the organizations. And from that single point, then everything else springs up. The command and control approach, where you have this architectural board that is governing everything within the organization, it takes so much time to approve anything through that. That used to be the traditional process, that you have to have certain set of tools that are pre-approved, and you can only use those certain tools. But now that is changing. You have decentralized ownership. You have smaller teams that have the autonomy to experiment with different tools and use the best one for delivery of their solution. The silos that were created between development and operations and quality testing, where one team builds one artifact and passes it on to the other team, and that tests and passes it on to the other team and leaves it for them so that it's now their problem to manage it and operate. Those things are changing. Now you have cross-functional teams that are coming in. You have DevOps processes that are coming in and merging these things together, bringing that communication closer within the team. And if you have smaller teams, then within those teams, one person may have multiple roles. But that one team is now managing end-to-end process. There is business analysis, there's development, there's architecture, there's quality testing, there's operations. All of that managed within one. So by having that small team that manages end-to-end process, you have a better control and a better insight into the whole process. The long cycles that you used to have because of this architectural boundaries and the team boundaries are going away. The teams are now building small implementations and testing it out before they decide what they really want to do and then push it into production. So those long due diligence cycles are moving away. And then finally, when these organizations were looking for support and they want to build something, and those somethings were assumed to be big because it's a monolith sort of system, and we don't want to fail there, trying to bring in resources who can help them manage that. That mindset is now changing. Not only organizations are training their resources in-house with these new technologies on the cloud and services and features so that they can build that team within their environment, within their organization, but they're also partnering with other organizations like AWS to help them move forward. Like in case of Envision Engineering, that's exactly a partnership where an organization comes in and says, can you help us take the next big step? So I think it's stuck. Okay. So if you're wondering, how do I get started on this? What is that approach to innovation looks like. That is, to summarize what we just talked about. If you are trying to implement that innovation, culture, organization within your environment, then there are 3 steps that you can take. 1, explore the processes, the mechanism, and the culture that Amazon has today that we talked about, working backwards and having leadership principles and focusing on the customer, always keeping customer first. Taking those and exploring those cultural mechanisms, and then taking a project within your own organization, something that you see as a challenge to your customers or a problem that your customers can benefit from. Take it and prioritize it to something really small, something that you can really focus on, something that you can build in 4 to 6 to 8 weeks, something that you can iterate really fast and experiment with. And the 3rd step, get started on it. Start building that proof of concept. Start building it so that you can learn from it. And as Andy Jassy used to say, there is no compression algorithm for experience. So if you're not building, you're not getting that experience, and every day you're not building, that experience is not there. So the only way to get that experience is that you start building. Take the first step, which is always the hardest, but once you take that first step, it will guide you on the next steps onward. So build. But if you're looking at your organization and you're saying we're not really there yet, or we're in the process of it, but we really need some help, then there are ways and means where AWS can help, because we're always there to help our customers, and that's what we focus on. So the Envision Engineering team is there to help you out. If you would like to reach out to your AWS account managers, talk to them about the challenges and problems you have and where you can think of a business need, where Envision Engineering team can help you build a rapid proof of concept. We can certainly bring our capabilities and resources to show you the art of the possible. And with that, I would like to thank you. We have a few minutes for questions if you have any. Thanks so much.
I have a question.